With us is Virginia's freshly minted U.S. Senator. He'll be sworn in today at 12 o'clock, high noon. Former Governor Tim Kaine, how are you?
Hey, John. Happy anniversary to you, and Happy New Year.
Well, thank you, sir, so much. We appreciate it. And by the way, I want to give a shout-out to you when we first went on the air in Richmond. You called us up at 6:15 a.m. with a cup of coffee from your kitchen table and said, hey, congratulations, I just turned the dial, and there you are. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate that. You know what's like? My wife, Ann, says, Senator, it's the little things.
Well, there you go. It is the little things. That's what my wife, Ann, says to me, too. It's the little
Anns
things.
have it.
Yeah, but no, today's an exciting day. We swear in at noon. We're having a couple of thank you receptions here for Virginians and others who've helped us out. And then, as you know, John, there's a long to-do list on the table, the Fiscal Cliff deal. I'm glad that we reached an accord on the Bush tax cuts. That accord was pretty similar to the one I had campaigned on.
Almost exactly.
But, yeah, I mean, I think I had promoted for about a year the notion that let the Bush tax cuts expire on individual filers over 400 and on joint filers over 500, and it ended up being 400, 450. That's good. The fact that the vote in the Senate was 89-8, that's good. It was bipartisan, a somewhat bipartisan vote in the House. That's good. But the spending issues dealing with sequester and the debt ceiling limitation were on a 60-day ticking clock, and one of my three committees is the Budget Committee, so I expect to be pretty busy right from the start.
Well, I think so, and I think with this compromise, Senator, one of the things that a lot of us just can't seem to reconcile in our minds is it didn't do anything to address out-of-control U.S. spending. This deal, if it stays as it is without anything else, is actually going to increase the debt, the CBO says, by an additional $4 trillion. What is Senator Tim Kaine's answer for this?
Well, I mean, you're right. The bill was a bill on the tax side and not on the spending side. There were some very minor spending reductions in the bill, but nobody viewed the bill as being a spending control bill. There were efforts made to put together a grander deal that involved spending reductions. Those efforts fell apart. The House proposed a plan B that would have even been worse in terms of the CBO score of it, because it had a different threshold on the taxes. For some reason, both houses and the White House decided at the end of the year, look, we're not going to be able to reach an accord now on the spending issue, so let's do it in phases. Let's find that end point on the Bush tax cuts, on making some permanent adjustments to the alternative minimum tax, which were definitely necessary. Some of the business taxes like accelerated depreciation, but then let's the 112th Congress just punted the spending issues to the 113th, and so now what I have to do is take my own insights and thoughts about budgeting from my time as governor, when we had to, in a tough time, actually shrink a general fund budget over the course of 4 years, not slow the rate of growth, but actually shrink it. I've got to offer those insights as a new coming senator. I've hired a good staff, including some staffers who know the federal budget backward and forward, and we've got to find a path now on the spending side to continue to work toward balance.
And how do you see us coming up with the dollars to offset the sequestration?
Well, it's not going to be easy. I mean, I think we can use some of the new revenue to potentially offset some of the sequestration cuts, but I believe that some of the new revenue from letting the Bush tax cuts expire at the top end, that ought to be used for deficit drawdown. So you can use some of the revenue to offset some of the sequestration cuts. You and I talked during the course of the campaign. I think there's some common sense reforms that can be made to Medicare, like negotiated prescription drug pricing. That'll save us $20 to $25 billion a year. There are some tax breaks, like the tax breaks we give to the big five oil companies, $4 or $5 billion a year. We don't need to be providing tax subsidies to an incredibly profitable and successful industry sector. I want them to be successful. That's great. We don't need to help them through the tax code. We need to look at all items of spending. What I learned as governor in a recession, and look, I had to shrink a state budget. I don't get any virtue points for doing it because I was required to balance the budget. I was required, but I did have to learn how to do it and how to make the decisions. And what I learned is You can't leave any line item untouched. If you have to do spending reductions, you've got to look at them all. You've got to make judgments based on priorities and performance data. Is this program performing? Is it producing a value for citizens, or isn't it? And then you also have to really make your decisions based upon where you want to be 5 years from now, not based on where you are now. You kind of have to make cuts for tomorrow, not for today. So, I am excited to take the oath at noon today. While we will not be, as a Senate, probably voting on matters till after the inaugural, the committee action will start right away, including, analysis of what we do on the spending side to continue on this path to a more balanced fiscal situation.
Senator, if we can, why don't we switch over very quickly to foreign policy?
Yep.
Bengazi, in your mind, as you're taking the oath, what is the one unanswered question about the Bengazi tragedy that is keeping you awake at night?
Well, John, let me tackle that one. I will say first that Senator Lieberman and a committee of others have produced a report on Bengazi, which offer some pretty stark criticisms and, more importantly, some significant recommendations for approval,
right,
for improvement. And both the Secretary of State's office, and the President have said, we welcome these, and we're gonna implement them. So, and I have not read the full report, but I am on the Foreign Relations Committee, which will have some province over this. We may even have additional hearings on Bengazi. One of the things I'll be looking at right away is, okay, if there have been recommendations made, come back periodically and report to us on the progress of are these recommendations being carried out. Look, a U.S. ambassador was killed. Other brave American public servants were killed. That means mistakes were made. They don't have to be mistakes of malice. They don't necessarily have to be mistakes of incompetence. But when people are killed who are serving our nation in diplomatic roles, that means mistakes were made, and we have to fix them. I learned that in the aftermath of the shooting at Virginia Tech.
Right.
It didn't need to be a mistake of malice, but nevertheless, there were mistakes made, and we had to fix them. The one that I'm maybe most kind of honed in on, having worked some in government and seen the kinds of mistakes that can often be made, is what I would call kind of the right hand, left hand problems. You're dealing with state, you're dealing with military, you're dealing with the intel community, the CIA. Was the information that needed to be known, was it appropriately shared between the silos, or wasn't it? I just often feel like in big bureaucracies, that's often the problem.
Right.
There's an awareness of problem in one silo, but it doesn't percolate over into into everyone else's awareness, and then you end up with problems. And we have a very complex intelligence apparatus in the United States, intelligence and security apparatus, and I worry that the information isn't always shared in the way that it should be, and then that leads us to not take precautions we should.
Definitely one of the big issues that we look forward, Senator, to having you get under. Final question, we got about 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
If indeed President Obama names former Nebraska Senator Chuck Hagel as his nominee for the Department of Defense, what is the one big question that you would really want to ask former Senator Hagel?
Well, John, I'll deflect that just a little bit, because I don't feel like it's a good idea to be venturing opinions on potential cabinet nominations if they haven't been nominated. So certainly Senator Hagel is somebody who has a very impressive public service record, both in the military and as a U.S. senator. But rather than personalize it to him, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, so I'll be involved in that nomination hearing for Secretary of Defense. And what I want to hear about is probably the two issues top of mind for me is thoughts about Afghanistan and the drawdown and the 2014 end date, and really probing what the Secretary believes about that. Thoughts about sort of future challenges, and maybe in particular really focusing upon the issues that we know are bedeviling us right away, like the Iranian nuclear threat. Those are the kinds of things that I would really want to probe a Secretary of Defense nominee on to get their philosophy and their thought about how we need to handle it.
Okay, Senator, we really appreciate that insight. We're excited that you're on two powerful committees, and we look forward to your continuing the dialogue with us, and we wish you all the best as you take the oath of office today at noon. And the one thing that the two of us definitely have in common, Senator, is we both married up. No question about it.
Indeed we did. And listen, again, I know this is your first anniversary of the show, and I just want to congratulate you on it. And I look forward to, periodically coming back on to talk about the issues that matter to Virginians.
Well, Senator, we appreciate that. And, oh, by the way, when you get your congratulatory call today from Terry McAuliffe, would you please ask him to come on our show?
I will definitely. I'll tell him
we're good guys.
It's a no downside. Why not?
All right, Senator. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Goodbye
Bye.
now.